Welcome back into Plead Your Case. I'm joined now with a new face, Richie Danini. He's going to talk about what pro sports leagues could expand. The NHL is the most recent league to do it, but there are other ones that could. So, Richie, break this down for me. What teams do you think, what locations could be added to the NHL, MLB, NBA, NFL even? Let me know your thoughts on this.
Well, I'll tell you what. I've seen a lot of sports expand in the past few years, most recently being the NHL, of course, with Seattle Kraken. I think that the NBA will be and should be the next teams to expand. I think they will expand with 2 teams, and I think those teams will be Seattle Supersonics will return, and I think we will have a team in Pittsburgh. Now, with the team in Pittsburgh, when you look at the area, we have Pirates, Steelers, Penguins, loved by the entire team. So why not add in another team like NBA? And you know the city will give them love, will show up for them, and you will have sellout games almost every week.
I love the take about an NBA team being here in Pittsburgh. I think that it would be great for the market. I think the idea of watching LeBron James in Pittsburgh would be insane. How crazy would that be? He just had his second decision. He called it the second decision. A lot of people thought he was going to retire and it was for an advertisement. What if he said he was going to come to Pittsburgh to play basketball? Obviously, that's all farcical and that doesn't make any sense. But I just like the prospect of a Pittsburgh National Basketball Association team, and it comes down to financial flexibility. You have to have a lot of factors to go into this, even parking down to the minute details. But if there was one league that I'd like to see expand, it'd be the NBA, and if there's one fantasy I'd have about it, it's about an NBA team being in Pittsburgh. But I will say this, Richie, I'm against expansion teams altogether. So you're really going to have to persuade me here. I have absolutely no love for it at all, because there's so many teams in all these leagues. It's already hard enough to win a championship as it is right now. It's even going to be harder if there's more teams.
Well, I will say that is true. You know, the more teams you add, the more players that go everywhere, and it can become more difficult to build franchises. Take a good look at the Philadelphia Eagles. That team they had last year when they won the Super Bowl, it was an absolute stacked roster filled with playmakers left and right on the offense, and the defense had superstars as well. But if you add another team, and let's say the NFL added in 2 more teams, make it 34. Then you have, a lot of stuff could be more spread out into teams, and you wouldn't be able to see these powerhouse teams come together like years ago when we saw the 49ers. They had Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel in his prime, George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey. And when you see teams like that, well, if we have expansion teams, I think that will happen. The NFL, I think, has a perfect Goldilocks number of teams with 32. So when you look at expansion teams, I do think that there's still opportunities for teams like the MLB still to expand. The NHL, they could get a few more teams, and same thing with the NBA. I'll say one thing for the MLB going into superstar and stacked teams. Look at the LA Dodgers. If you add another team in, you could see that those superstar players, you could see them leave LA if it is a team that can provide more of a market overall and outbuy those players' contracts, because truth in today's game is that it's all about that money, nothing else. Sometimes they care for the hometown, but for the most part, you're going to see them caring about the money that they're getting.
Yeah, to the MLB point, I mean, half the league is rebuilding at any given time. So you already have half the league essentially uncompetitive. All these 100-loss seasons, triple digits, and it's not even close. And then you want to add a second project onto that, and you want to be able to bring in another, or it wouldn't just be one, because there would have to be an even number of teams, 2 more Major League Baseball teams. It's a 162-game season. I just don't see how a team's brought up in the middle of nowhere in a city, and then all of a sudden that fan base is just, so passionate about the baseball team, like say New York, how New York fans are with the Yankees, how Pirates fans are in Pittsburgh. It's not a real fan base. It's not a real fan base, and that's also part of the reason too why I just don't get expansion teams whatsoever. Yeah. So are you also saying that you're saying that the NBA needs an expansion? You're undecided on Major League Baseball.
I am actually kind of decided on Major League Baseball. I will say for Major League Baseball that they definitely should expand teams. I mean, let's take a good look at the team that's moving right now. The the A's. The Oakland A's are going over to Las Vegas, and we're not. The entire team is just, fan base is just blown up about it. They're in shambles. They're upset. They want their team to stay in Oakland. So if we're going to build this stadium for the MLB, if you're going to build a stadium, move a team over, why don't you just add another team in? If is it because the fan base won't follow? There won't be a fan base building up, or is it because just this team's not doing well? They don't want to build a new stadium, so they move there. I mean,
baseball can't fill a stadium right now, though, Richie. They can't fill a stadium right now, and on weekday nights, attendance is around 6,000 people on average around the league. If a lot of these, especially for a lot of these bottom tier teams. So I just don't like the prospect of it. I don't think that it's a good move for the MLB. It's not a scintillating experience for me. So I don't get what you're saying. I don't.
Well, I think that expanding the teams when you add them to a franchise, when you add them to cities that are looking for teams, it brings more opportunities for fans to go and interact with these games.
So you're telling me if, let's say you live in Portland, Oregon, and all of a sudden there's a Major League Baseball team that's just planted smack dab there outside the college football stadium, and you're going to just all of a sudden, day one that they're there, be a passionate fan, and you're ready to go. And you think within 5 years you're going to get a packed house crowd that is just as ecstatic to be at a playoff game as, say, Pirates fans would be in PNC Park.
I don't think we would ever see something like that off the rip day one. Because like everything when you're building something, it takes time and it takes critique. You don't build, when you're building a tower, you don't build it block by block straight upwards. You build a foundation, you go from there. Obviously, we'll go back to the A's real quickly, moving to Las Vegas, in general, if you're saying you just move a team there, you don't regain an entire fan base overnight. That's why they are announced ahead of time, to get interest in the fans and everyone there so they can become interested in the team.
And that's really what it is. You have to have enough interest, the honeymoon phases of this, but you also have to maintain that interest. It can't fall off. So if the team stinks to begin with, and that's the other thing here, this dilutes talent, because we've seen it in the NHL. Whenever there's expansions, they have the expansion draft. A lot of the great players from around the league, they go to the new teams, but there's also a good amount that don't. And they end up diluting the talent across all the teams in the league. And I just think that the product isn't good enough right away in those new cities that they're catching on well enough. And you've seen it already happen, for example, in different sports too. You've seen it with the Montreal Expos even in baseball. So I'm just not a huge fan of this, Richie.
I'm not the biggest fan of teams moving. I think it's horrible when a fan base loses their team. But I do think expanding, while it can create more out for players, superstar players going left and right, then we don't get teams. It also creates an opportunity for more players in the league to show what they have and become superstars of their own, instead of being stuck on a team where they couldn't show their potential. Now, yes, you could see this with other teams that if they, maybe a player goes to a different team, is traded, or they sign there. But when you add more teams, and if you add 2 more teams into the MLB, NFL, NBA, you will see players that have to take that role to be a superstar that maybe couldn't take that opportunity on the other team, and it creates new opportunities for to see emerging stars throughout leagues.
So, Richie, you've given your opinion, I've given mine. Are there any direct locations you have that you'd like to see teams expand to in the professional leagues, a specific sport that you want to see targeted first? What direction would you go with that if you were a commissioner of one of these leagues?
I would love to see, and I do think they will do this before the end of the decade, I would love to see NBA. I think that while 30 teams is great overall, I do think that having more teams would be better overall, especially for how small rosters can be in the NBA. There's only so many spots. I think it's maybe 18 at most, and then all these other players don't get opportunities to prove themselves on the court. You add a team to Pittsburgh, the team that, known for their Steel City, and then they get their sports teams over time. If you add an NBA team in there, I know the city will show them love. And if you give players an opportunity to go to Pittsburgh, where it's a great marketing city, great television city for games, you'll see a great output overall in the fan base, in profits, and in players' hearts.
Anything else you want to touch on?
No, that's all I got.
So you got, well, the last thing I want to say, I think the Seattle Supersonics should come back. That would be fascinating to watch. But that's all we have for you today on Plead Your Case. Please stay tuned and stick around next time and sit back, relax. You're watching Plead Your Case.
Don't wanna sleep in, cause I got something to prove. I gotta take what I hate and finally make a move. I think of you and all the shit you don't do. Well, I'ma make hella sure that I don't become you. I have no regrets, yeah, I'll tie up my chest. I'll never forget what it's like to be in debt. Been stabbed in the back bed, I'll show you what happens.